Would you like to be the President of the United States?
People have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Does that get you interested in possibly making the plot?
Would you really like to take over and run the country as you have run your organization?
I would much prefer that somebody else do it. I just don't know if somebody else is there. We need major surgery. This country needs major surgery.
Are you the surgeon?
I think I do a fantastic job, but I really would prefer not doing it.
People are talking about Donald Trump for president. What they're really talking about is Donald Trump, show us the way, show us the way, show us the way.
Welcome home, Mr. President!
I think Trump, way back, had his eye on the presidency. Within a year of Obama being president, Trump said to me that Obama is a disaster. I think to some degree Trump, was a little amazed that he won. But he operates the White House the way he operated his business. When Melania first met Trump, he asked for her number. She wouldn't give it to him. Trump, on the one hand, shows power. On the other hand, he likes to make deals. The claim is he doesn't listen to people, he doesn't care about science. Well, he listens to them all day long. I think Trump is very proud of the China deal that he's made. It's something that he's cared about forever. Trump understands that Biden, really never did anything, including advising Obama against going after bin Laden. Well, Trump really cares about this country. He really is a patriot. He's not a bleeding heart who goes around gushing about it, but that is at the core of Donald Trump.
Donald John Trump was born on Flag Day, June 14, 1946. His father, Fred, was a real estate developer in Queens, New York, and his mother, Mary Ann, was a homemaker. Trump grew up in the Jamaica Estates of Queens. He attended New York Military Academy, graduating in 1964. Then, Trump entered Fordham University, eventually transferring to the University of Pennsylvania, where in 1968 he graduated from the Wharton School of Business. Trump joined his father in the company business, E. Trump & Son, where they owned and developed middle-class rental housing in the outer boroughs of New York City. It was during this time Trump would be exposed to a wide variety of people, ranging from bankers to tradesmen and blue-collar workers. Later in life, working-class Americans would become a major part of his political base as he became the 45th President of the United States.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I think a major key to Trump's success is that he does understand the so-called working people.
Ron Kessler is a former investigative journalist for The Washington Post and the author of 21 nonfiction books and 7 New York Times bestsellers. 2 of his projects involved Donald Trump. His latest, The Trump White House, was released in 2018. Kessler says Trump has a unique perspective on the American worker.
I think it's because the working person, say a carpenter, is judged on results. If the carpenter nails something crookedly, after a while, that person will be fired. Trump looks at life in the same way. He wants results. He wants to get things done, as he says. And so there's this parallel approach. And that's why I think working people admire Trump, respect him, understand him.
Kessler first met Trump in 1998 when he was working on his book, The Season, Inside Palm Beach and America's Richest Society.
Palm Beach is the richest place on the planet, and it has these rituals. They have the old guard, the WASPs, they exclude Jews, everything is about wealth and going to charity balls. It's a totally unreal atmosphere. In fact, the prosecutors in West Palm Beach don't want Palm Beach residents on grand juries because they're so removed from reality.
Kessler first met Trump when he was working on The Season. A friend introduced the two, but Trump liked to do his own vetting.
He called me. The recommendation of the friend wasn't enough. He spent about 20 minutes on the phone asking what I was doing, what my approach was, very meticulous questions. And then about a month later, his assistant called and said that he wants to take me down to Mar-a-Lago and we'll spend the weekend with my wife Pam, and that's how the relationship started.
Kessler said one of his initial impressions of Trump was his willingness to ruffle feathers.
We got to go in. The next time they fire so much as a bullet at one of our ships, we got to go in and take over their oil.
Well, the first thing I saw with Trump on the plane was he had this big box of clippings, mainly criticism of him over his new building near the United Nations. And he just was delighted with this publicity. He didn't care that it was critical. And that certainly tells you a lot.
By 1998, Trump had built his father's real estate company into a billion-dollar global venture. And the Trump brand was big, something Kessler said the Palm Beach crowd just had to deal with.
Trump was just the opposite of what Palm Beach likes. He would wear a suit and a tie instead of a blue blazer. He would drive a Lamborghini, not a Rolls Royce. He would boast about his money, which offended them. And so everything about Trump was different.
In 1985, Trump bought a prestigious Palm Beach estate that he would develop into one of his most prized properties.
Mar-a-Lago was built by Marjorie Merriweather Post. She was the serial heiress. And it's an incredible estate. It has gold ceilings. It has over 100 rooms. It fronts on both the Atlantic and the Intercoastal Waterway because the island is only a half a mile wide at the widest point. Donald says that Mar-a-Lago is the closest thing he'll ever get to paradise, and I think that's quite true.
But before he could develop the Post estate, Trump had to deal with the Palm Beach establishment.
Palm Beach will accept almost anything if it's got enough money, but somehow it will not accept Donald Trump.
He had a big problem getting approval from the town fathers for his club Mar-a-Lago, and he believed it was because he admitted blacks and Jews. Some of the town council members belong to some of these clubs that will not admit blacks or Jews, and he had his lawyer, who's Jewish, Paul Rampell, send copies of Gentleman's Agreement and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner about discrimination against blacks and Jews to these council members, implying that they're bigots.
Balancing hardball tactics with Palm Beach civility, Trump eventually transformed the Post estate into one of the most exclusive private clubs in the world. Kessler says Mar-a-Lago is an example of how Trump operates.
He would also use both the carrot and the stick, and this is typical of the way he operates. He would invite them while accusing them of bigotry to play tennis with him, to play golf with him at Mar-a-Lago, to go to the parties with the glamorous young women. And eventually he got that club approved. He also sued the town as well. And now it's a thriving club. It's $250,000 to join, plus $12,000 a month in fees, as well as the cost of dining and other parties.
Even though Trump and Mar-a-Lago are now ingrained into the Palm Beach landscape, that doesn't mean his relationship with the community is without an occasional dust-up.
Trump has always been very patriotic. At Mar-a-Lago, he erected this huge American flag, totally towering over Mar-a-Lago and the island, which violated local zoning regulations. It was too high. So he engaged in this huge battle with the town. He sued the town, claiming they were infringing on his First Amendment rights. The town sued him for huge amounts of money every single day. And in the end, guess what he did? He did reduce the size of the flagpole, but he had it erected on a mound of earth that his workmen erected on the grounds. So that in the end, the flag was just as high as it was in the beginning. He's always been like that, going back to when he was in elementary school. He said in his book, The Art of the Deal, I was always about making mischief, and for some reason I like to stir things up. And that's certainly the way he operates.
The problem is the press doesn't cover it the way it should be. They're so damn dishonest.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. Press has not treated the
these incredible people who've done such a great job. They haven't treated him fairly. When you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people.
Testing. Right now,
You're so disgraceful. It's so disgraceful the way you say that. 75% of those people are downright dishonest.
On the Russia investigation, are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with
You
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming
investigation because it's a hoax.
Are you?
That's enough. Put down the mic. Well, Trump has a symbiotic relationship with the press. On the one hand, he needs the press, he needs the publicity, he loves the publicity, even if it's negative. He said in The Art of the Deal, sometimes even negative publicity can be good because it gives you a higher profile. But at the same time, Trump is outraged at the media dishonesty. And, he grew up, as I did, when the media did try to be honest and did try to be fair. And now that's totally flipped.
At a time when the nation needs clarity from its leadership like never before, the president offers confusion, contradiction, and false claims.
Trump has perfected this method of getting attention from the media almost every day, even if it's over some outrageous comment. I think all of us cringe at some of the comments that Trump has made, some of the tweets that he does. Melania tries to get him to tone it down, but it doesn't work. But at the same time, it gives him power because he is the center of attention. And so whatever he says has much more power, much more influence, and that's the key to his success.
Kessler says Trump understands news cycles and the media, and like his old battles with the Palm Beach community, he uses that same carrot and stick approach. However, nowadays, he uses more stick than he does carrot.
I was at the Washington Post during Watergate. I sat next to Woodward and Bernstein, and we would have been fired just like that by the executive editor, Ben Bradley, if we had done the sort of stories that appear now in the papers. An example is during the campaign, the New York Times ran a story on page 1 above the fold, and the lead was Donald Trump had barely met Roanne Brewer Lane when he asked her to change out of her clothes.
Roanne Brewer Lane was a professional model and a contestant in the 1988 Miss USA competition. She publicly called out the New York Times for the way she was portrayed and accused the journalists of lying.
They told me several times, and my manager several times, that it would not be a hit piece, and that my story would come across the way that I was telling it, and honestly, and it absolutely was not.
She went in the bathroom, she put on a bikini, she came out, and guess what? They started dating for months. Well, where was that in that story in the New York Times? In the 16th paragraph. But the story presented this as a debasing encounter. And then Jean Baquet, the executive editor, defended the story to the Washington Post and said that her quotes support the idea that it was a debasing encounter. Not true at all. No quotes whatsoever that were negative. And the fact that she went out with him for several months indicates what the real story was. If that had been in the lead, the story would have been exposed as a fraud. And that is just so typical of the way the media operate today. I'll tell you what, you take a look at the media, these are the most dishonest people anywhere.
One of Trump's biggest battles in office was launched the moment he arrived at the White House, as he immediately found himself fighting a two-front war. One against the media, and another against career bureaucrats bunkered deep in government agencies.
Trump was assaulted every single day with stories that were untrue about collaboration with Russia, and a lot of it did come from the FBI. He, like I, always had great respect for the FBI. I think he was appalled at what was going on at the high levels of the FBI, making up these really corrupt investigations, which turned out to produce absolutely nothing.
The results are in. And take a look at the headlines from the Washington Post to the New York Post. They're what the president wanted.
Kessler says the media was more than willing to create a false narrative and bombard the news cycles with leaked information from unnamed sources they knew were questionable.
On the one hand, Trump certainly felt aggrieved by these untrue allegations about collaboration that were just ridiculous. In my book, The Trump White House, I ran the Washington Post story that ran in August of 2016 during the campaign, which quoted emails that had been sent by this low-level aide Papadopoulos to Paul Manafort, who was then the campaign chairman, urging the campaign to meet with Russians in Russia. And what was Manafort's response? Was he going to collaborate with Russia? No, just the opposite. He said, no, we're not going to do anything with Russia. He told his deputy, we're not going to do anything with Russia. He appointed another aide just to make sure that Trump doesn't do anything with Russia or that anybody in the campaign does anything with Russia. So this ran in the Washington Post, totally ignored the bottom line on the whole issue of whether there was collaboration with Russia during the campaign. But this is typical of the media bias.
Russia has been eager to meet Mr. Trump for quite some time and have been reaching out to me to discuss.
Trump, being the tough guy he is, wasn't that bothered. He saw this as an opportunity to get publicity, to get back at the Democrats. He thought it was outrageous what they were doing, but he didn't go around moping about it. And that's just the way he is.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
I never sensed that Trump was political or ideological in the very beginning, but in 2011, I did a story saying, don't underestimate Trump for president. And that's turned out to be pretty prescient. And so I did start to realize that he has a whole different side to him, a political side. He talks like a real political expert. It's not something you saw way back, but I realized that he was on the track to become a presidential candidate.
In 2004, Trump became a household name when he began starring in a weekly reality show that captivated much of the nation.
And who will be the apprentice?
Well, certainly The Apprentice gave him much more visibility and made him a real celebrity. He was always pretty big in New York, but this gave him national attention. And so all that built upon the previous step to get him to where he is.
While Trump held a few core beliefs, mostly in foreign policy, economics, and trade, prior to running for president, he was mostly politically neutral and courted officials from both parties.
As a New York developer, just wanted to be friends with both sides, and he certainly had some conservative views. Going back to when I first met him, he would talk about some of the same things he talks about today, about China, about war in Iraq, cutting government spending. But he got along with both sides. He invited Hillary to his wedding, for example, and was not really political.
In 2009, Trump was alarmed as the new administration set out to transform the United States into a more globalist society.
Within a year of Obama being president, Trump said to me that Obama is a disaster, and he didn't want to be quoted on it yet. He didn't want to offend his business compatriots, but that is the way he felt about Obama.
Kessler says that when Trump started to seriously consider a run for the presidency, it didn't surprise him.
Going back to the conversations I had with Trump way back 2 decades ago, he was very prepared for becoming president because he had a grasp of a lot of world issues and he had a grasp of conservative approaches to the government, and he's simply implementing them. Trump operates with a very limited vocabulary when it comes to making his points or tweeting, but that works. You know, it's something that people can comprehend just like that. He'll just have one sentence or one phrase to encapsulate an entire concept. But on the other hand, if you watched him during the White House pandemic briefings, he does have a full vocabulary. He does have an incredible memory, just an amazing grasp of detail.
Kessler believes Trump has left a mark on the highest office in the nation that will not be forgotten.
The presidency will never be the same after Trump, and it's just almost impossible to imagine another president who would operate like our previous presidents did, in a very measured way. I think people get addicted to the excitement, even if they don't approve of Trump, even if his comments outrage them sometimes. At the same time, they want to see what the latest controversy is. They want to see what he did next. So it's going to be hard to wean away from the Trump presidency one day.